Good day, everybody. It's Andrew here, and welcome back to my channel. We have a huge update for the next stimulus package and great news for seniors. Chuck Schumer just announced that he's come to a deal, including Kyrsten Sinema, on lowering drug prices in the next stimulus package, which is not only great news for seniors in regards to lowering drug costs, but also brings us one step closer to having that entire stimulus package approved. So let's discuss the details in this video, but before we do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I also have a second channel, so do me a huge favor. Click on the link that's in the comments of this video, and please subscribe to my second channel. I really appreciate your support. Okay. So this is essentially an update from the video I did this morning, where I talked about the fact that one of the main hurdles to getting the stimulus package done was getting Kyrsten Sinema on board, and specifically getting her on board with lowering prescription drug costs, which is a huge burden for seniors. Now, it looks like the pressure has finally gotten to her, and in my previous video this morning, we talked about the fact that not only are Democratic congressmen pressuring her, but people in her own state are protesting Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona for not being on board with lowering drug costs, with approving stimulus checks for seniors, with expanding Social Security benefits. And basically, it's been pretty much well documented at this point that she gets donations from pharmaceutical companies, and this is the main reason why she is against lowering prescription drug costs, and it's been slowing down the entire stimulus package because the Democratic caucus is saying, like, no, we're not going to leave this out of the stimulus package just because Kyrsten Sinema is getting paid for by pharmaceutical companies. Like, that's not okay. But when President Biden came out last week and gave his framework, which was basically like the new starting point for the stimulus package, he actually took out lowering prescription drug costs. That was removed from that stimulus package framework entirely. But progressive Democrats came out and said, you know what? This is unacceptable. We have to lower drug costs for seniors, and we have to lower drug costs for everyone in this country because it's just completely not okay that people are spending tens of thousands of dollars for life-saving medications. We'll talk about the details of this in a second, but I just quickly want to point out that this is really good news for the entire stimulus package because the framework came out and a lot of things were taken out of that framework, right? Including the expansion of dental and vision care. And then now we're even not sure if we're going to have that stimulus check for seniors in that package. We think we will, but there's a chance it could be taken out. It's kind of in the maybe pile right now. Well, this is good news for that stimulus check because this goes to show you that progressive Democrats are still fighting to include more things in this stimulus package because Kyrsten Sinema wanted this lowered drug cost part of the bill taken out. Biden basically folded and said, you know what, we're going to take it out. His framework took it out. And then progressive Democrats came out and said, unacceptable. We have to lower prescription drug costs. And now it's been officially announced that Kyrsten Sinema is now on board after pressure from the American people to lower prescription drug costs. And this article is titled, Key Centrist Kyrsten Sinema just announced her support for lower prescription drug pricing after reportedly opposing it for months. Now, Senator Kyrsten Sinema, her office, released a statement just a couple of hours ago on her support, now supporting lowering prescription drug costs. She's publicly backing a proposal that would let Medicare negotiate down prescription drug prices after reportedly opposing it for months. The centrist senator is a key holdout, so this represents a major step towards getting the stimulus package done. Lower costs on prescription drugs are back in the stimulus package after key centrist Kyrsten Sinema has now put her support behind it. Now, in a statement, the senator's office said that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, reached out to Sinema over the weekend to keep negotiations going. So Nancy Pelosi, although Nancy Pelosi can be a pain in her own right, she is responsible for getting Kyrsten Sinema on board. And apparently they kept talking over the weekend. And now it looks like they're reporting that Sinema has finally agreed to support lowering prescription drug prices. And she said that the senator welcomes a new agreement on a historic, transformative Medicare drug negotiation plan that will reduce out-of-pocket costs for seniors, ensuring drug prices cannot rise faster than inflation. Okay, so there's a little bit of a hint there, saying that they ensure that drug prices cannot raise rise faster than inflation. So basically, right now, like Bernie Sanders always says, pharma companies can raise drugs as much as they want. There's no law that prevents them from increasing drug prices. Well, what they're saying here is that they're going to ensure that drug prices cannot go up faster than inflation. So that could happen one of two ways. One, they could just create a law that says no drug price, no individual drug can go up more than inflation every single year, which this year we had high inflation, but typically it's between 1% and 3% every single year. So that would be really, really good. And that would kind of be the strictest way of doing it. Now, another way they can do it, which they might be doing it this way, we're still not sure, is they could say inflation, whatever it happens to be, if it's 2 or 3% that year, your overall out-of-pocket costs cannot go up by more than 2 or 3%. So, for example, if you're on Medicare, let's say you spend $2,000 a year on prescription drugs, then year over year, that overall cost for your out-of-pocket medication costs cannot go up more than inflation, which is usually 2 or 3%. So that's another way they can do it. So that wouldn't really restrict specific drugs, every single drug, from going up more than 2 or 3%, but it would essentially restrict the amount of your out-of-pocket costs by 2 or 3% per year, if that kind of makes sense. I know it's kind of confusing, but basically there's a couple of different ways they can do it. That first way I explained would basically put the burden on the pharma companies. It would prevent them, every single pharma company, from increasing their medication costs every single year by more than inflation. Now, that second option really wouldn't prevent pharma companies from increasing their costs, but what it would do is prevent the consumer, like you, from spending more than inflation every single year and increase prescription costs. So it's kind of confusing, but that second option would basically put the burden on Medicare, on the government, right? Because if prescription costs do go up more than inflation, but the law says that the consumer cannot pay more than inflation as far as increasing, well, then that difference would be paid for by Medicare, right? So we're not quite sure, is this burden going to fall on the pharma companies? Is it going to fall on Medicare? But one thing we do know is they're going to be allowed to negotiate drug prices with pharma companies. So that usually leads to lowering drug costs across the board. And we've seen that with VA, right? The VA administration is already allowed to negotiate drug prices. And a lot of times they end up paying half of what Medicare pays. So this overall, guys, is really, really good news for seniors and really good news for the next stimulus package, as it represents getting past one of the major hurdles that stood in the way. So although Democrats continue to negotiate the stimulus packages, we do expect to have them done really, really shortly. Nancy Pelosi is hoping to get them done as soon as this Friday. Now that's ambitious, but most likely we're going to have these stimulus packages done in the next couple of weeks. Now, Chuck Schumer just held a press conference announcing the fact that they came to a deal to lower drug prices, and they're one step closer to getting the stimulus package done. So, guys, let's take a look and see what Chuck Schumer had to say, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
And now I have an important announcement on progress for the President's agenda. I'm pleased to announce that an agreement has been reached to lower prescription drug prices for seniors and families in the Build Back Better legislation. Fixing prescription drug pricing has consistently been a top issue for Americans year after year, including the vast majority of both Democrats and Republicans who want to see a change because they simply cannot afford their medications. We've heard this from people across the country who have serious illnesses and can't afford their medicine. What a painstaking position to be in. It's horrible. Today, we've taken a massive step forward in helping alleviate that problem. By empowering Medicare to directly negotiate prices in Part B and Part D, this deal will directly reduce out-of-pocket drug spending for millions of patients every time they visit the pharmacy or doctor. It will cap out-of-pocket spending at $2,000 per year, ending the days where a life-changing diagnosis could mean thousands upon thousands of dollars in new expenses. And it will reform the entire industry to stop price gouging. And change both drug company and health insurer incentives to make sure our country's drug pricing system benefits patients, not corporations. I want to thank many of my colleagues who worked on this. Senator Klobuchar, who was here, Senators Wyden, Murphy, Cortez Masto, Bennett, and Kelly. Senators Shaheen, Hassan, and Smith for their leadership on insulin. The price from insulin will go down from $600 an injection or a dose to $35, whereas where it should always have been if we would have had proper laws in place. And Senator Sinema has told me she supports this agreement that will make historic investments to help millions of working and middle-class families achieve the American dream in the 21st century, while taking new and bold steps to tackle the climate crisis. Over the weekend, I continued diligent, assiduous negotiations with my Senate colleagues, the Speaker, and the White House, as Congress prepares to take action on the President's proposals. We are still talking and working through important details and making good progress, and I want to thank all my colleagues for their diligence, their expertise, and their commitment to getting something done. As I've always said, nobody is going to get everything they want in the deal, but it will have some things that everyone wants. Even as legislative text continues to get finalized, the framework itself already contains very, very good and important things that will make a tremendous difference in the lives of the American people. It will help the middle class stay in the middle class. It will help those struggling to get to the middle class get there a little more easily. It will really help Americans in ways that Washington has not helped Americans in quite a few years. One way it will help is child care. Tens of millions of American families struggle with the unaffordable costs of taking care of their children. For some families, child care can cost over $10,000 a year, forcing parents to make the painful choice between going to work and looking after their kids. The consequences for our economy with its shortage of workers, for parents and for our kids, are severe and long-lasting. The framework, with its historic investments in child care and universal pre-K, would finally provide working and middle-class families with the urgently needed help they need, so parents, particularly women, can enter the workplace, earn a living, and not worry about whether their kids are being well taken care of. So we have an opportunity, a real opportunity, to take unprecedented action to protect Americans against these threats. And while there'll be so much more to do, this is a bold step in the right direction. As the President spoke before the world today in Glasgow, his framework is proof the United States is ready to once again lead by example against the greatest existential crisis of our time. There's so much more to like in this framework. As I have said repeatedly, when this bill is passed, it will be fully paid for and reduce inflationary pressures, something that has been affirmed by many economists. It'll be fully paid for and at the same time reduce some of the bottlenecks and high costs that people have. It will lower people's costs in many ways. And particularly, we are making regular progress to lower prescription drug prices as we work to refine the agreement. The framework will also make health care more affordable, cut taxes for working and middle-class Americans, and most importantly, provide long-sought ladders for families to climb up to the middle class and give them the stability needed to stay in the middle class once they get there. It will lower costs for people in many different ways, one of our main goals. This will be just what the American people need and will not be inflationary.